or whatever you want to do. But I'm just encouraging you guys to come out to the country, but leave your cars where they are, but just recreate. We got some interesting cars in New Zealand. So that's my advice. And Cletus and Jeff, definitely I'm interested in the team that Cletus hangs with. So those are basically the three inspirations. There's the 1340 guy that goes to, that's also another inspiration with regards to what we're doing. And that's pretty much it. So I've delivered my newsletter. You've heard the MyVec have a roar. I'm still doing testing on this. I've got time lapse to do. I've got a hoist to bring out. What do they call them? 3 motors. So it lifts 1.2 ton. So I've got to put that together, and then just get some rotors and stuff. Get that to the garage and get the brakes done for a revinning. So they were interested in taking my red car for a revin. In the mountain, about 10 days and $700. But that's good. That's just what we do. So we're in level 2 at the moment, so we're socially distancing. So you saw us a little bit sparse to the people there. They had their little bits and pieces up. I don't want to interact with them without permissions or sign. I think they sign waivers. So as long as I stay on camera, I can learn all that stuff a bit later on. Anyway, it's Friday afternoon. We've got a long weekend. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday we're back into what's going on. So it's good. Anyway, I know that I enjoy watching Cletus once a day, so I've realised that the most important thing is to have a video put up 7 days a week, because he's done it all month, and it's just nice, and you can watch 2 at once. He does this for half an hour, but my upload videos only for about that period of time. So I'm fixing, this one that uploading today is fixing the door on the bus. And then this is me delivering Newell's Road News. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all those people that are interested in supporting New Zealand's film industry, because that's one of the things that New Zealand can do, is that we can bring in scripts and we can be film people, and then while the virus is still raging. So we really should tune up our country to be involved, and this is part of it. So hopefully that there's sponsorship money out for as much video that comes from New Zealand and create huge demand, and promote ourselves. I don't want to get into any of the other things at this stage, just while the world's going through a settling process. But at my point, we're fortunate in New Zealand to be surrounded by a 2,000 kilometre moat from Australia, and they've got pretty much good protection there as well, with water around them. And so we know the flights in, flights out. And I just encourage in my newsletter, as you heard earlier, Prime Minister Jacinta and Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters and your cabinet, if you're listening to this, please test. Whatever it costs, just get the test for 5 million people in New Zealand, and test everyone, whatever, just to find out if they've got the antibodies or the other test. And I know it's not a pleasant test, but from my perspective, the worst thing that could happen at this stage is for it to go into rural communities that don't present to hospitals, and then all of a sudden it spreads right throughout the country, and then it comes back and completely compresses into the cities. So that's what we don't want. So that's why New Zealand was always good in the old days with its public health. I'll just give you a quick background on public health in New Zealand. With the testing they did, early x-rays testing with regards to tuberculosis, and then into sanatoriums. Gabriel's Gully was a gold mining area. So we had the 49ers over in California. They found some gold in the river with the pans. They then found gold up into the cliffs, the 49ers, in the quartz. And so that was 2. There are 5 locations for gold in the world, and the last probably 3 have been discovered in the last 60 years. But those were the early ones. So those gold miners, once they depleted the gold fields, they went to places like South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand had a gold field which got picked up globally, and so 30,000 people arrived in a couple of months to a place called Gabriel's Gully. Anyway, this doctor, he went down to the local council and said, hey, what's going on with your these people on the hill? They'd come home from the pub and they'd in tents, and the guys would piss out of the tents and it would run down the hill, and then the mums and dads and the kids that came latterly, they were down at the bottom of the hill and there was sewers running through their tents, and the more that the people found gold, the more that there was sewage coming rolling down the hill, and more people arrived. And so he went to the local council in the day, and they said, oh, these are not our people. And he was horrified. Well, I said, typhoid and cholera is going to break out. They're not our people. Anyway, he went up to Parliament in New Zealand and he talked to the health minister up there and said, look, we got this problem. Now, the only saving grace why he didn't get turned away with regards to the executive up there was they looked at the books, and $1 billion equivalent, $1,000 million of gold had come like 9 months or something through Gabriel's Gully over the ports of Otago. And that was the only reason. So what happened is he got to write public health. So he did water, pools. So we had some of the best public health regulations at local government level anywhere on the planet. And so we're showing this with COVID-19. For whatever reason, we are a country that has the ability to react in a good way. So that doctor, and you can research his name and stuff, but just a shout out to him and also the Minister of Health. But you could see the councils were those are not our people. And so we've still got a bit of that. But at central government, we get it right. So what they did at that stage was they implemented right throughout all of the districts good public health. I'm not saying we're 150 years ahead, because that was in 1861. So what are we now? 40, that's 180 years ahead. But that's when they did that public health. But the rest of the world used it as best practice. And even today, it's still best practices. It was brilliant, making sure that water supply is chlorinated in pools, and just really good management and governance around water and sanitation and getting rid of refuge. And that's why I'm so hot on this council with regards to what they've done with the rubbish dump. It was supposed to have 35 years. Someone squandered 19 years of it. And now we've got a transfer station. We've moved all of the rates money that was for rubbish collection from rural to into the urban. So they've doubled down on the urban people, and they made it user pays with rubbish bags in the actual supermarket. You got to pay, plus you pay through rates, plus you pay extra if you're a urban dweller. And so you've got renters now that'll put rubbish underneath, and nothing against renters, but they'll put them underneath the house, and then they'll leave after 6 months, and they've saved themselves $5 a week, and all of a sudden after 26 weeks, they've saved themselves $1,000, but the landlord's got a whole lot of rats and a whole lot of rubbish underneath his house. So why this council's going down that line, I do not know, and they've been challenged on it. I've sent a submission in, and I basically called them foolish. I understand how New Zealand had some of the best public health on the planet for the last 180 years, and we need to return to that. And this pandemic is showing up. What do they say? They're not asking the right questions. And that's the thing on sanitation. What the heck is happening with our sanitation? That's the first thing a council should do. You get $1 in rates and you make sure the water's running, you make sure the rubbish is taken away. That's it. It's not rocket science. So money, $5 million spent on putting a few poles in the car park, that's waste of money. Absolute waste of money when you contrast it to the rubbish collection. Now, the rubbish collection, if it was perfect, then spending $5 million on the poles being moved in the car park at Leith Place is perfectly fine. No problems with improving things, and we've got our own opinions on what looks nice and what doesn't. But we're still waiting for the toilets there, so we've got sanitation issues. Public toilets are locked at the lake at 7. I wanted to use the toilet the other day and it was locked. So where's this coming from? Do people close off at 7 o'clock till 7 in the morning? I mean, public toilets, are you unable to make a public toilet safe? I mean, there's so many things that you could do to improve sanitation, and that's all that you're charged with. That's it. Not looking pretty, but just getting, what do they say? Flush the toilet and it goes away. That's all council has to do. Make sure the water runs, rubbish is taken, and when you flush the toilet, it goes away. That's what you do in council. That's 99% of what you do. Some people are getting into all sorts of other things, and that is where the problems are coming in. Hence, we've lost 19 years of a dump given away that needs to be investigated. So in my newsletter, I talked about a Royal Commission being called over the virus time to find out, and I talked about elder abuse. So that's a bigger general subject on elder abuse, but I did ask for that for this reason. Rubbish collection, and I found that, and I was chastised, threatened with prosecution for encouraging fly tipping in the rural areas. But then I found out that they were trying to squirrel money from one side to the other, and they didn't want anyone to object to that. It was like, let's get that done, and then no one will be able to change it back. You know, what's going on there? It's not proper consultation, and it's all done under a COVID side of things. All I asked is that in the 80s, get their rubbish picked up, and it became this huge, what do they say when people run and no one's chasing them? Well, it seems very similar to that. So what do they have to hide? And that's right, we've lost 19 years of our dump, so there is nowhere to hide the rubbish, okay? So it's mounting, and I was angry that in lockdown 4, this council in South Waikato district was encouraging old people to put their rubbish and drive around the lonely streets of Tokoroa, tossing their bags of rubbish out into the street. They were fearful that people would see that and attack the car. I mean, what is council thinking? All they needed to do on one simple little road, which has the dump at the end of it, is say to the contractor, could you please pick up the rubbish? It's one of those things. People ask, well, why is this not residential area anyway? Because it's so close to town, and that's another reason that I suggested it change from